Welcome to the Nuggets Inc. podcast, presented by no one. I'm your host, Matt Schubert, joined once again by beat writer Bennett Durando. We got a bunch to get into. It's playoff time. The Nuggets taking on the Clippers. We get into the matchups, we get into the storylines, and then we talk about some other series. Also, who's the scariest player you can face in the playoffs? We do a draft and awards. Our man Bennett reveals his ballot. All that and more coming up next. And we're back for another edition of the Nuggets Inc. podcast, presented by nobody. We're in North Washington, Denver. It smells great outside. The playoffs days away. The play-in games already underway. What do you think about last night's festivities? Anything jump out at you?
Didn't care about the game in the East.
No.
Really fun game in the West.
Yep.
Save for some strange officiating down the stretch against Golden State, but also for the first 3.5 quarters against Memphis, I would say. Mm-hmm. Pretty exciting game. Zach Edey was not ready for the moment, I felt like, but also he had like 18 rebounds or something. So,
well, I mean,
I felt like he would grab a rebound and then immediately not know what to do with the ball, and it would often be rendered meaningless pretty quickly, just from a tie-up or a turnover or something like that.
Kind of looked like Zach Edey versus the Lilliputians whenever. I mean, they're just not big. They're not a big team, the Warriors.
Yeah. And Memphis fires their coach to draw up a side-out play, down 3, potentially with the season on the line, only to have a 5-second violation and never get the ball in bounds. So, good move getting rid of Taylor Jenkins. Clearly paid off in the biggest moment.
Well, and that guy was kind of the X's and O's guru, the one that they kept around, right?
Supposedly, yeah. I can't speak to it too specifically, but, obviously Nuggets fans would hope that their coach firing situation goes a little better than Memphis's did in a clutch situation right there. So, lot to talk about. I'm not boarding a plane this time. You've been able to get away to Kentucky.
Correct.
For a few days.
Yeah. Golfing.
Yeah.
It was fine.
Nice and refreshed.
A little.
Locked in for the playoffs.
Yes.
Who knows how long of a playoff run it will be. These have kind of turned into the, I guess we'll see what happens, playoffs for Denver.
Yeah.
So
this is I just don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah.
I have no idea what I'm going to see from the Nuggets. Now, the last 3 games after they fired Michael Malone and Calvin Booth, they went 3-0. Memphis was kind of touch and go there for a second. They were in a little bit of trouble and came through at the end there in the fourth quarter. Houston, not at all. And Houston seemed like maybe they kind of wanted to win the game, or at least were sort of trying to win the game.
Baffling decision to play their guys after resting them against the Lakers on Friday. They had the 2 seed locked up. The implication of playing your guys in that game is we want Denver potentially to fall to the play-in.
Yes, so we could get them in
the first round, which would have been an interesting scenario to see play out, honestly.
Oh, yeah. You get what you want out of this?
Yeah.
How do you like it now?
So I would have kind of enjoyed seeing that one way or the other. But here we are, Nuggets, Clippers. Pretty interesting series, I think.
Yeah. Do you get the sense just from those 3 games that there's some sort of burden that's been lifted within the organization, that maybe that this actually was a positive and good thing to do that late in the season, or are you reserving judgment on that?
I do think there was a sense of relief in the building. That was kind of the vibe that I got in the days following the decision, certainly in Sacramento. But then I think, just coming back, the Memphis game, which was a high-stakes game, it just felt like the politics were lifted out of the situation a little bit. And to David Adelman's credit, he came in and coached that way immediately. A lot was made of the fact that Russell Westbrook's minutes in the first game in Sacramento were his fewest in multiple months at least, and that Adelman was not afraid to pull Westbrook out of the game if he started to get erratic and commit some live ball turnovers.
Right.
Jalen Pickett has an incredible game. Friday against the Grizzlies, Russ has a really strong game. The matchup wasn't quite so great for Pickett in Adelman's eyes. Russ ends up closing and makes multiple huge defensive plays down the stretch. Denver doesn't give up a field goal the last 6 minutes, and that ends up being what they need to kind of make the run and get out of that. And Adelman kind of points out afterward, Russ was playing pretty well tonight, so look who closed. Go figure, it's Russ. Mm-hmm. So there's kind of a pure of heart approach.
You can't question the motives behind his roster decisions.
Exactly. It is a who is the best player at this point in this game. This is the guy who's going to close. Michael Porter Jr. was the one who ended up on the bench at the end of the Memphis game. I think that the minutes division between Pickett and Westbrook and then Porter against Memphis all made perfectly good sense. And, just was defensible by Adelman. He also, I think, a notable adjustment that he made in the Memphis game was Denver has been killed out of their base coverage on these threes all year, and we've talked about it. Corner threes, kick out threes, behind the pick and roll defense threes. They put Jokic lower on the floor in the second half because Memphis starts the game 11 for 25, like midway through the second quarter. And so when they play him up at the level of the screen and he's showing and all of this, but he doesn't execute it as well as he should, you risk falling into defending 3-on-4 basically. And Adelman decided, okay, we might give up some shots that look easy in that 10 to 12 foot range, but we'll live with those floaters instead of playing 3 for 2 here. We'll just let that 2-on-2 pick and roll play out instead of letting Memphis play 4-on-3. And it worked. Memphis ended up 3 for 12 from 3 in the second half. Denver makes its run from down 15. So I'm kind of fascinated. Adelman talked about the fact that it's kind of fun for him to have keys to the defense a little bit more, just from the standpoint that he has been in charge of the offense for several years. He has to think about how defenses adjust to them and how you beat certain coverages. So inherently, like he's coached defense in his past before Denver and all that. He has some of that sort of in his background and in his repertoire, I guess. So interesting to see how he coached those games, I thought, and they go 3-0. So it's hard to complain about the results. But now they're rewarded with a very, very difficult 5 seed, I would say.
Red hot.
Yes.
Clippers, and everybody is forgetting they're the Clippers again and ready to jump on the bandwagon and profess them to be, I've heard, as high as the second best team in the West from a few different people. That seems a little crazy.
They're the hottest team in the NBA as a whole. So there is that.
Sure.
Whether or not you want to take that into extreme value and decide that they're second or third best in the West or whatever, I think is, in the eye of the beholder, I guess.
Sure.
But look, 18-3 in their last 21 games, that's a full quarter of the season. So it's not a small sample size. They were first in net rating in the NBA during that stretch, better than Cleveland, better than Boston, better than OKC. James Harden, Kawhi Leonard, and Zubats have all been playing their best basketball during this stretch. It is kind of a terrifying situation to run into from the standpoint of just how they are coming into this thing. As much doubt as we know there has been kind of circling the Clippers and their health for half of a decade now in these playoff situations.
Maybe even a little longer.
Yes. They've got plenty of stench with them historically. But
it's been with them since they've been in, even back to the San Diego days. So before we get into the playoff stuff, one last thing to talk about. Josh Kroenke emerges to discuss his decision with the team in a presser on Monday. Obviously, you were there. Seemed like someone who was owning his mistake. What was your impression of just what he had to say, what it portends for the future, and all that?
It was a little bit of a growing up as an executive moment for him. That's kind of the impression that I walked away.
He learned
from
a few
with.
things from this.
I think so.
Yeah. Maybe have your guys talk to each other every now and then. That was one of the lessons?
So to an extent, he said that these two guys needed to take more accountability when I was not in the room. He has a role with Arsenal. He has other roles within a massive business that the Cronkies are operating.
Avalanche, Rapids,
Rams. There was a ton of stuff going on. And the Nuggets, while his baby to an extent, are like not anywhere close to his full responsibility. So to an extent, one of the points he made about kind of what led to this was, yes, we sat down, we would have meetings. The conversations in those meetings were really productive, I thought. But then the culture seemingly was not where it needed to be when I was not in the room. And basically without saying it, he was saying, I can't babysit 24/7. Now, on the other hand, he also took some accountability here and said that he should not have let things kind of slip to the point that they got to with the relationship between Malone and Booth. That slip was kind of the word choice that he used. And in acknowledging that, he said that there were multiple points during this season where he almost fired them.
Yeah, that was quite the reveal.
Yes. So last fall, around Thanksgiving, timing sort of checks out. The Nuggets were not playing well. The defense was abysmal at that point in the season. They were lingering around 500 for the first quarter of the season.
They were also coming off an NBA championship.
Indeed. Well, a year earlier. Yeah.
We're talking this last thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Still, though, one season removed from it. So he had considered it then, and then he considered it around the All-Star break, only that the Nuggets went on an 8-game winning streak into the break. And
playing a lot of bad teams at that time, too.
Yes, playing a lot of bad teams. He has said multiple times, starting with his in-house interview with Vic, that winning can mask a lot of things. There's no secret, really, as to what the winning was masking, I think. And look, in this presser, Josh Kroenke kind of tried to be self-aware, even a little bit jokingly, about how crazy the timing was to fire them so late in the regular season, but then also asked rhetorically which would be crazier, to fire them when I did or to fire them in the middle of an 8-game win streak. I don't know. Interesting question. Yeah. Both pretty crazy, I think, objectively, right?
Fun to ponder.
Yeah. So kind of crazy to think about the what-ifs of those situations, but I think part of what he was getting at was that he let this go on too long, and the relationship reached a point where it was no longer salvageable. Efforts to salvage it did not seem to be working anymore, and he just let it fester more than he needed to, basically.
I didn't see the whole press conference, so you have to let me know. Did anybody ask him specifically, well, why not just get rid of one of them?
No, not specifically, but I've reported this. He basically decided he did not want to take sides in it. There were other components to the Malone firing. We did a big piece last week on this, but yes. Players were starting to get a little bit tired of his intensity, basically. Like I think there was a time when Malone's coaching style was really good for where the Nuggets were in their kind of collective development process as a roster, and then you win a championship. You've been there, you've done that. You're trying to pace yourself throughout a season. You're trying to kind of, it's an older group, a more experienced group, and I think it started to grate on some guys, basically, over time. I don't think that means that they outright disrespect him, but I think his kind of messaging and his tone basically ran its course, and so that was already an element of this with Malone. And then you factor in him and Booth having this toxic relationship, essentially, that's leaking into other aspects of the organization.
Right, who he plays and when he plays those players.
Yes, both of them. Whether true or not, harboring accusations about the other being a bad faith negotiator, basically, in terms of how they were running the team. So, so you have that aspect of it. You have the fact that Calvin Booth turns down an extension.
That's a rough one.
I don't think the Cronkies wanted to offer him that much more. Ultimately, that was evident in that they took it off the table, and his autonomy in terms of decision making started to get scaled back during the season after that. And so you have that aspect, you have the Malone aspect, kind of independent of their poor relationship, and then you put those things together with the way that the culture is kind of deteriorating over time. And I think to him it was a why choose between the two sort of decision. And he said neither of them deserved it. What he meant by that, I believe, was that neither of them deserved it individually, that he thinks that they are both pretty smart and pretty capable at their jobs, but ultimately the dynamic between the two on top of everything else just became
required a reboot.
Unsustainable. Yeah. And so at a certain point, clean the slate, get rid of the toxins in the building, and
you might
start over.
I mean, maybe there's a few toxins still hanging around. I mean,
possible.
Sure there are Booth loyalists and or Malone loyalists. They're still in the building, although I guess once you take the two leaders out, that sort of kills it.
I think it breaks it up a little bit, and I think people, like, while certainly having angst against the opposite of the two, I think there was a lot of like feeling of obligation, basically, to stand by the person that people supported.
Sure.
That is the sense that I've gotten in the last week or so.
So later on in the podcast, we're going to get into your voting for awards, for NBA awards. But one more question that's sort of related to that in this regard. Does Nikola Jokic get dinged or deserve credit?
It's a good question.
That the Nuggets are a 4 seed with 50 wins amid all of that chaos, or that he was the leader of a team where all of that chaos existed for as long as it did.
I honestly think you can look at it either way. I tried to sever that from my voting process.
It's not Nikola Jokic's. It's not his responsibility for those things to be working in tandem above him. Is that the argument you're making? Or
I would generally say so. To me, I just tried to divorce his on-court performance from that. And I tried to do the same with Giannis last year when they had a ton of turnover and, a tumultuous season in Milwaukee. I do think it ultimately worked against Giannis that they went through the coaching change in the middle of the season, though. And he ended up fourth in that MVP race when he could have very justifiably been at least second, I think. So I don't know. It was tough. Like I think if people want to say, like, hey, the organizational dysfunction reflects poorly on the superstar player, I think that's a fair argument you can make just from being up close to it and being like aware of a lot of what has been going on here. To me, like I just tried not to connect the two that much. I tried not to give him that much credit for it. But there is a line of thinking that, oh, wait, this seems like a screwed up situation in Denver, and yet they won 50 games.
Right.
Largely because of how incredible Jokic was. Like, I think that's a school of thought that makes sense too. It's just not one that went into my process, at least. I don't know. It's fascinating. I mean, we've reported that on this ad nauseum because I think it's one of the most interesting things that people wonder immediately when there are sweeping changes like this. Is it the superstar being in ownership's ear to make this happen? The way that it has been presented the entire time from people anonymously on the record, everything from Jokic himself has been that he got the heads up first ahead of other people, but was not consulted specifically for this, hey, your call, fire Malone or not. Like that. I don't think that's a position that ownership would want to put him in either.
It's really hard to envision Nikola Jokic doing anything behind the scenes to lobby for large scale changes to an organization. Given his personality and the way that he is, I just can't see that.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I will say, like, his frustration in game was starting to become pretty apparent.
He was freaking out on the bench.
By the end, the Golden State game was the most obvious example of this, where he is ironically seated between Vlatko Čančar and Dario Saric, of all people, gesturing to them wildly about what's going wrong out there. And, just of all people, man, right? Like your mid-level exception guy with the player option this summer. But nonetheless, I think as the Kroenkes were observing the team and trying to kind of carefully come to a final decision here, they were pretty closely watching Jokic's mannerisms and watching his body language and, the way that he was expressing himself in huddles on the sideline, his commitment to the defense, that sort of stuff. And no, Jokic might not have gone to them and said, man, I'm sick of this bleep. But I think that they kind of inferred what they could from watching him and observing him up close. And that certainly was a major factor in the decision in the end.
Classy move from Michael Malone, full-page ad in the Denver Post, thanking the fans for his 10 years in Denver. Didn't see one from Calvin Booth. I'm joking. Sorry.
Calvin Booth will pay twice as much to the Denver Post for a double truck ad in the paper.
I have to say, I didn't realize, and this is something that was also surprising in your story, all the money owed Michael Malone, given his contract status, and that the Kroenkes are not known for swallowing that sort of financial penalty or whatever you want to call it.
Definitely not.
And so that they did that seems really significant about how seriously they're taking this.
Clearly, they felt it urgent enough to pay him a buyout that is...
It's a lot of money.
That equates to one of the highest paid coaches in the league.
I think $10 million, right? Correct.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes. He has 2 years left, so it's going to come out to a little over $20 million, I believe. And on top of that, they'll be paying a new coach a salary. Yeah,
probably not as much.
Probably not as much, I would say so. It is interesting that they were willing to do that. Malone was, he signed that extension the fall after they won the championship, I think.
Correct.
And he was one of the highest paid coaches in the league. I think if he wants to coach again, maybe as soon as next year, he could probably find another job. I'd actually be curious. I was
the Suns job.
I was thinking through the list of places where he could hypothetically end up, just from a pure speculation standpoint, not reporting here, and was curious where you think the most interesting destination would be for him potentially.
If I were him, I would steer clear of Phoenix. They've already fired 2 coaches that have won NBA championships. They could easily make it 3.
Yeah. If Michael Malone's a guy who kind of sticks up for other coaches when they get fired on what he deems to be a short leash, he kind of takes this coaches guild approach to it almost. And Phoenix is certainly the prevailing example right now of lack of patience with coaches. So,
prevailing example of a lot of dysfunction.
I do think Devin Booker would kind of be a Malone guy, though. I think,
Oh, I could see that.
I feel like they would mesh weirdly.
But they might just blow up that roster, too.
They might. They're at least going to trade Durant. That's basically, it's not even a secret or anything like they're outward about it.
He's on the market.
It would be really funny?
What? Throw it at me.
Playoff run stalls out quickly and goes terribly wrong for the New York Knicks. They decide we need a new voice in here. Thibodeau's out. And then, of all the people to bring in, the guy who grinds his starters probably the second most of any coach in the league behind Tibbs, Michael Malone.
Tibbs is in a league all his own.
He is.
That.
There's a cliff between him and Malone, but I think Malone would probably be second on that list behind him. So
Mike D'Antoni used to have that reputation. He's definitely. I would say standing on Everest is Thibodeau for that one.
Mm-hmm.
Malone's in base camp.
Yeah, that's fair. Still very high altitude up there.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
You're going to need oxygen probably, but still.
Still a long way to go.
Yeah.
Malone in New York, my gosh. Can you imagine?
That'd be fun.
The Queen's accent.
Sign me up.
Back where it belongs.
Yeah. No. I'm all for that. Okay, I think we've talked enough about the coach and GM stuff.
Yeah, probably.
So let's move on. We've got the playoffs happening. The biggest part of the season about to start. Clippers in the 4-5 matchup. This is going to be a tough one. Asterisk if the Clippers are healthy. Let's just put that asterisk across every single statement we make for the next 15 to 20 minutes if the Clippers are healthy, because let's face it, it's the one thing that scares you the most about them if you're a fan of the Clippers.
I think you have to also apply the same asterisk to Denver and Jamal Murray. One of the
good point.
Defining aspects of this series is that you have two teams that I think everyone agrees in a utopian situation has a really high ceiling, but that ceiling is dependent on the volatile health of one of their star players.
Well, and Aaron Gordon, let's face it,
Aaron Gordon too. Yeah, the calf's been barking all year.
Yeah.
So
all right. Just to start off with, do you think this coaching switch is in any way advantageous from a schematic or strategic standpoint for the Nuggets going into this Clippers series, that they don't quite know what's coming, or no, these guys have been running the offense and defense all year. It's not like this is going to change by leaps and bounds.
I don't think that Adelman wants to make...
And by the way, Ty Lue's a heck of a coach.
One of the best coaches in the league. You can make an argument he's the best. He made it onto my ballot for Coach of the Year. So,
ooh, a little early reveal.
Yeah. Incredible coach, Missouri guy. Believe he's from rural Missouri.
Didn't he play for Nebraska?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
But
okay. Right.
I'm just claiming him, so that's all.
Fair enough. I didn't know that he was a Southern boy.
It's kind of funny when you compare. Shut up. I tried to.
Aaron, you didn't catch
roll
that.
with the punches, but we need some emailers just to assess whether Missouri is Midwest or South, because it's obviously Midwest. But whatever.
You get out of St. Louis, it becomes the South immediately. But all right,
you've called St. Louis the South, but I digress.
The St. Louis suburbs.
Okay.
Yes.
The Clippers and Nuggets, if you want to begin contrasting them from how the organizations have been run this year, it's kind of fascinating because the Clippers have this reputation for they're going to mess it up somehow, or dysfunction, whatever it may be. Sterling, obviously, a decade ago, looms over the franchise. The Nuggets, they're the organization that drafted Jokic in the second round, and they've developed all these guys and done it quote unquote the right way to build into this championship team or whatever. But you look at this year, obviously the evidence is immediately in front of us that the Nuggets have had all this dysfunction as an organization, whereas the Clippers have managed themselves pitch perfectly, and they don't offer Paul George the fourth year. It starts there.
Well done.
A smart decision. Ty Lue says we're going to be better than everyone thinks. They're expected to be a lottery team, basically, to end up
I thought they were going to be a lottery team.
Maybe in that 9-10 play-in at least, maybe slip into the 8. They come out really well. They handle the mercurial health of Kawhi very well. He only plays in 30 games or whatever it is, but Powell turns into something that he had never been before, pretty far into his career.
He was getting all-star buzz.
Yeah. If LeBron hadn't dropped out last second, then if he had dropped out earlier, then Powell maybe is an all-star.
Thanks a lot, LeBron.
Has a timeline that could have happened. So Norm Powell takes this massive leap that no one could have predicted. Zubats takes this massive leap that no one could have predicted. And
I mean, is it a leap with Zubats? I feel like he was pretty good last year.
He was always good, but he is, and we're going to get into this in a little bit more.
Now he's the second coming of Wilt Chamberlain, from what I've been told.
He's been a fantastic player this year. Like, if you're like,
how do I say his first name?
Vicha, I think. I hope I'm not butchering that. You're usually the one who mispronounces people's names on here. But
okay, all right, let's go.
I wrote maybe a month ago that he's been a top 10 center in the league this year, and that feels embarrassing now because, like,
what? It would not be inaccurate.
No, it is accurate, but it's understating it. Like, it's Jokic, Kat, Şengün, and then maybe Zubats right there. Like, in terms of performance this season, he is right there. He's definitely top 5. Incredible year for him. They have gotten the most out of all these guys. They signed Chris Dunn in a sign-and trade. You may remember this.
Oh, yeah.
They get him in a sign-and trade at the taxpayer mid-level exception from the Utah Jazz in the same move that they used to offload Russell Westbrook. So they get Chris Dunn at $5.2 million, the same amount, the same exact salary that Denver ends up signing Dario Saric at. And
that didn't work out.
Russell Westbrook also ends up in Denver on a minimum as a result. Chris Dunn should have been an all-defensive player this year, but he did not play 20 minutes in enough games, which was something that voters were realizing at the last second, I think. Otherwise, I think he would have probably been on the majority of ballots, at least second team. One of the best perimeter defenders in the league all year. They just got the most out of all of their guys, Harden included, making an all-NBA push. And as far as the Nuggets' new coach thing, like, you kind of know what you're going to get from the Clippers. They run more isolation stuff than any team in the league.
But do you know what you're going to get from the Nuggets? That's what I'm asking.
Adelman has said that he's willing to make any adjustments that are necessary to win the game that they are playing and that anything is reasonable, but I don't think that they are suddenly vastly changing their base defensive coverage or anything like that.
Well, and it's still Murray and Jokic together in the last 4 minutes of a game.
Yeah, we saw it against Memphis, and obviously Adelman has designed this offense and been a huge part of the offense for the last 8 years anyway, so it would be unreasonable to expect too much of a change there.
You might be reading about that in the Post in a little bit.
Indeed, yes. When you have this offense that's been calibrated so perfectly, like, how much is really worth changing? So I don't think that they're doing anything different from what they would do tactically with the offense.
Maybe substitution patterns, though. Maybe.
Sub patterns could be different. Rotations could be different, certainly. I actually think this could be a pretty important Westbrook series when you kind of game out the matchups in the starting lineup.
So that brings me to another question. We're just going to go through a bunch of storylines and things like that.
Yeah.
Russ versus LA. I mean, if you're drawing this up for, like, potentially getting the worst of Russell Westbrook and maybe even the best of Russell Westbrook.
Yep.
Going against
both are fair.
Former team, the LA Clippers, in fact, the last team that he played for, where he can have revenge. Oh, that scares me. That makes me shudder a little bit.
Yeah.
It just feels like there could be a point where he's like, you know what? My time now.
There is a risk of that. Look, if there's a biggest change with Adelman, to the point that I made earlier, it might be that he is unafraid to pull that plug when he sees that it's fit, you know?
Better have that plug ready, is all I'm saying.
So, like, in theory, that is some. And the other aspect of this, by the way, Adelman is coaching from a self-preservation standpoint very specifically here, because this is an audition to a certain extent with Denver. Even if he doesn't get the job in Denver, he has been consistently looked at for head coaching jobs around the league over the last couple of years. So, like, people will watch how he coaches this series and this playoff run.
If he wins this series, does he get the Nuggets job?
It's a good question. Simple? I think that ownership likes him. I know the players really like him. So I think you could do a lot worse. than David Adelman. And we'll see, how it.
Won't have to pay him $10 million a year either.
That is certainly true. That is always an aspect of how you have to think about this stuff with the Cronkies, I think.
Yes.
So to your question, there's an Adelman element with Westbrook, but he is going to be a major character in this series. Whether the media will hear from him very much is maybe doubtful, I would say, but that is what it is.
It feels like he's just this glass of nitroglycerin. And it could end up benefiting the Nuggets, and it also could go horribly wrong. Like that's what I see here. Do you like that?
I do. So this one of the storylines here, this will be the first playoff series ever at Intuit Dome.
By the way, that's kind of an advantage for the Clippers.
So this is what I was getting at. It's the playoff debut for the wall.
Right.
The fan wall behind the baseline to distract opposing teams at the free throw line.
Hat tip to Ballmer for that one.
Incredible. And this is part of them running the organization perfectly this year. Like the reviews of that arena have been rave reviews, and it's like a really cool fan experience that actually had the fans in mind when he built this, clearly, which is really unique and really cool, I think. So everything from ownership to roster building to coaching to player development for them this year has been in sync and really well run. And in home games, the Clippers' opponents had the second worst free throw percentage.
Makes sense.
Of anyone in the league. So the wall, maybe there's a little bit of coincidence to it, but the wall paid off at least to an extent. What if we see Russell Westbrook, who's great at pressuring the rim and getting to the foul line, going to the line with the Nuggets down by 1 with 8 seconds left in a game at Intuit Dome?
Looking at that wall. Yeah, it's the first time probably in the history of that organization where it felt like they actually had a home court advantage, like a real home court advantage to their home games.
Yeah, it seems like it.
They played at the Staples Center, shared that with the Lakers for a long time. Before that, it was LA Arena, and it might be half filled. This is the first time they've got their own place, and like you said, specifically designed in a way to make it advantageous for the Clippers. Be interesting to see how that plays out.
Yeah. So I can just envision it right now, the end of game situation where it's of course Russell Westbrook is at the foul line with game 3 of this series on the line right in front of the wall against his former team. Could it happen any other way? But I do think he's going to be important. I think there's a chance for him to have a really good series because let's just look in the matchups. Aaron Gordon on Kawhi, right? Christian Brown on James Harden, probably.
I would think so.
Who guards Norm Powell? So in the starting lineup, you're left with Jamal Murray or Michael Porter Jr. I think what they could do, and depending on the staggers, the sub patterns, however this ends up going, you can have someone like Peyton Watson chasing Powell around off-ball screens because they run a ton of that stuff for him. Or maybe you have Christian Brown on Powell for a little bit. You can switch some stuff if you play certain lineups. And then you have Russ take some minutes on James Harden. And I think that's a matchup that Russ can be pretty good in. And he took him on for stretches in the regular season and did all right with it. So,
well, that was when James Harden was shooting 35% from the field.
In fairness, I do think his whole season, the shooting numbers looked not great as a whole at the end of the season, which is why I held him back from my All-NBA team. Another spoiler, but he was really good in the last month and a half or so.
Yes, yeah, I believe he shot 47% or something.
47 from the field, 40 from 3. Yeah, so he was really solid to finish the year.
Legit good. Although, next storyline, James Harden, not exactly a playoff performer.
Yeah.
Not known for going for the jugular and actually getting it in a playoff series. His numbers aren't terrible. They're also not great. And there's just been countless examples where he just, for example, I'll pick one out of thin air. When the Rockets made that big comeback to beat the Clippers in the 3-1 series, Guess who was on the bench when that happened?
Yes.
That would be James Harden. So, your thoughts?
It's a fair point to bring up. I think that he's good, even if he has a bad series, he's good for a couple of big games.
Yeah.
I think about the Philly-Boston second-round series a couple years ago that went 7, and I think he had 2 monstrous games in that series.
He did.
And won
the
those
others
games,
were stinkers.
and he was really bad in the other 5. Yeah. And it's like, well, at minimum, if he's a guy who you can count on to like kind of win you 2 games, and that speaks for something in a way, but you don't want him to be a liability in the others. If they're fully healthy, he does not have to do quite as much. Like
they run the offense through him.
They can run the offense through him, but they can run the offense through Zubats. They can let Kawhi cook. Like they have stuff that they can do where he does not have a heavy scoring burden on him necessarily. And like I'm just saying, if they're healthy, he is well equipped to kind of operate that team, be the floor general, not have to do too much, have his moments when needed. But it's going to be tough. I'm also going to point out that the Nuggets have had some trouble with fouling jump shooters at points this season. Christian Brown has had those issues a handful of times, including against James Harden.
I can remember Russell Westbrook having that issue at least once.
Yes. A little bit different, but like James Harden is obviously maybe the best of all time at baiting guys into leaving their feet with shot fakes, drawing the contact on jumpers, getting to the line for 3-shot fouls, that sort of thing. So,
just an aside, that Minnesota game now in retrospect, when you look back at it, like they could write a book off of that game now. Like it is everything and all at once. So that's a chapter if you're writing a book about this team, right? Like
beginning of the end
game.
For Malone and Booth. Massive ramifications on the playoff seeding in the West. Denver's a 3 seed. If they win that,
right.
I don't know exactly how the tiebreaker would play out with Minnesota. I think they would maybe be the 7 or the 8. Whatever. It's not that relevant, but like
unbelievable. Sorry, I interrupted you. Go back.
Anyway, that like it's going to take a lot of discipline to stay on your feet with Harden, and
he might flop a little bit.
More than a little bit. I think it's fair to say more than a little bit. Now, here's something that is really advantageous for the Nuggets. These are the bottom 2 teams in the NBA in 3-point attempts per game.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Really helpful for Denver.
Yeah.
And there have been so many teams this season that have just hammered them over and over again, hunting for threes, transition, pick and roll pull-ups, drive and kick. They are just looking for it because they know that they can annihilate Denver with math, and the Clippers are not a team that has won with math this season that much. And so that works to Denver's favor. I think this is like a really, really good roster, like about as good of a roster and talent-wise as you can have for a 5 seed in the Clippers, but there is some matchup stuff where you're like, okay, Denver can handle this. Harden isn't the quickest guard either, so like he's not necessarily the prototype of guard that Denver's really had trouble with in terms of slippery getting downhill against them, that sort of thing.
Little rotund.
Yes. He's a guy who Christian Brown can keep in front. I think like Russ can take stints on him and be successful. I think that they are equipped to handle him.
Norman Powell might be a bigger challenge.
Powell is going to be tough. If you go back to the first game they played, I think it was the second game of the season, Powell had a huge fourth quarter against them, 17 points, 20 points, something like that, and pretty much won LA the game. So he is going to be tough. It's just defending those 3 guys. Like, how are you going to work your lineups? Like Jamal and Michael Porter on the floor at the same time, it's going to be tough in terms of just how you navigate that. Which one of them do you hide to an extent on Chris Dunn in that lineup? Jokic is going to have his hands full with Zubats. There's going to be some tough stuff. Like it's not an easy series whatsoever.
Yeah, I don't think Jokic is going to get doubled in this series as much as he would in most.
No, I mean, Zubats has been an amazing defender. I think you'll see a lot of single coverage. Jokic averaged 5.7 assists against the Clippers this year, the fewest against any team. That's mostly, I think he had a triple-double in one game, but then 2 assists and 4 assists in the other 2 that he played, something to that extent. So there might be a pretty heavy onus on him to be a scorer in the post against Zubac. It's going to be an interesting matchup.
Okay. Who has the edge? Guards. Go.
I think you have to say Clippers, right?
I think I trust Jamal Murray more than any Clippers guard.
I think I do too, as far as like an individual playoff performer at guard.
Yeah.
Offensively, like
to me, it feels like a wash.
Yeah, that's fair. Like Harden has had probably the better season overall. He's more distinguished as a whole for his career.
Sure.
And Chris Dunn is the best defensive guard in the series. So
right, but Christian Brown is, I don't know, light years ahead of him in terms of offense.
Yeah, that's fair. And not too shabby defensively himself either.
Right.
So I think it's pretty close.
I'm saying wash.
That's fine. I think that's fair.
Wings.
Clippers.
Agreed.
It's Kawhi Leonard.
Kawhi Leonard's on that. Again, asterisk, if Kawhi Leonard is healthy. But he has been healthy, and he's been playing like 40-minute games a few times here down the stretch.
Yeah. Just an incredible player. Obviously not super reliable from a health standpoint, but when he's on the court, generally pretty reliable, whereas you kind of don't know what you're going to get from Michael Porter Jr. necessarily.
You definitely don't know what you're going to get from Michael Porter.
Yeah. You can count Powell as a guard or a wing, I guess. I mean, he's a shooting guard, like
between the two, yeah.
Whatever. So
same with Christian Brown.
I think I technically counted him as a wing when I was writing this out in our scouting report for the series.
Fair enough.
Just to balance the love a little bit.
Yeah.
Technically, in that starting lineup, he's the 3.
Yeah, but
so
it kind of feels like 2 and 3 are really interchangeable.
Yeah,
with them,
very much so.
In a way that they're not as much with the Nuggets.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, center. Yeah, it's the Nuggets.
Yeah.
I think it's the guy who just finished up a triple-double season shooting 57%.
Doesn't matter how good Big Zoo has been.
No. No.
Shouts to him, but,
He's going against an all-timer.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, like a decided advantage. And it is in every series. Like, nobody has that.
No doubt.
In the rest of the league.
Kind of interesting. Both teams are going to have to go small ball behind their starting center, basically, unless the Nuggets decide that DeAndre Jordan is viable at all, which, I don't know. Another former team situation, by the way.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure he's just champing at the bit for revenge.
But, like, the Clippers, it's like they've used Ben Simmons as the 5 a little bit at points in bench lineups. I don't know if Ben Simmons can really even play that much in this series. Like,
yeah,
he would scare me. Can you
wait? He would scare you if you're the Clippers.
If I'm, that's what
definitely.
I mean.
They terrify me.
Yeah, Nick Batum missed a couple games at the end of the regular season, but do you go really small and have him kind of
as your 4,
as a de facto 5 even? Like they just don't have like a traditional center behind Zubac, so that's kind of an interesting situation. And we've all come to expect Aaron Gordon to play the 5 for Denver in the playoffs with the second unit. So interesting stuff there. Can either of those bigs get the other into foul trouble? That's going to be.
I think Zubac is actually pretty good at not getting into foul trouble.
They both are. They're like, it's one of their strengths is their ability to stay on the court.
Although Jokic sometimes takes some really dumb fouls.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's that much of a weakness for him.
That was an early career thing for him.
Okay, yeah, I would say not so much anymore. Like he understands that he needs to stay on the court for his offense, and I think you could argue that's part of, the defensive shortcomings with him. But both of them are generally pretty good at staying out there. It's going to be interesting to see if they like really go at each other to try and turn it into a war in the paint and get one of the others.
I believe they're friends as well.
A lot of Balkans in this series.
Yeah.
This is so you have the 2 best Serbians in the league.
Correct.
Jokic and Bogdanovic.
Correct.
Nuggets need to be careful that Bogdanovich isn't keeping Jokic out too late the night before any of these games. And then you also have, maybe a lesser extent as a storyline, but the two best Croatians in the league in Zubac and Dario Saric, the starting front court on the national team last summer. So got into a little bit of a scuffle at a bar, I think.
Oh, I didn't
in
know
Greece,
that.
didn't they?
I don't remember that.
I think during the...
I believe it, though.
During the Olympic qualifying tournament, there was like a video of them getting in a fight with some random guy.
Well,
yeah.
That's the life of the big man.
Yep.
People want to fight you. So, bench.
Clippers.
Yeah, probably. They got a lot of depth.
No doubt.
That's certainly something that they have over the Nuggets.
Yep. Derek Jones Jr. was a starter on a team that was in the NBA Finals last year.
Correct, and made some big shots for him, too.
Yeah.
Was a actual a significant player in that run.
Some friendly shooting variants for him in that playoff run, I'll say. But,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I think Nuggets in 6. What say you?
I've gone back and forth several times in the last couple days, but I think Nuggets in 7 is where I'm at.
We're going 7.
I think it's going 7 one way or the other.
Oh, wow.
This is meant to be a long series.
Yeah. And then the Thunder are waiting on the other end.
I know. Yeah, it's just a tough spot. Like, I think this has potential to be a real bloodbath, and then the winner has to take on a Thunder team that's well rested after sweeping a defeated Grizzlies team, just a team that doesn't look like they really want to be playing that much anymore.
Well,
so
that's assuming that.
Although you know what, I take that back to an extent because John Morant played his heart out in that Golden State game on an injured ankle, and Desmond Bane battled. Triple J did not play so well
on an injured ankle. I think that.
Yeah, exactly.
I think they're done.
It was brought up to me that the Clippers, as unreliable as they may be from a long-term deep playoff run standpoint, it kind of sucks to have to play them in the first round because sure, maybe you can count on Kawhi to get injured at some point during the course of a playoff run, but if you're playing them in the second round, you have a series before it to hope that he's a little bit banged up and suddenly he's missing 3 games. Mm-hmm. The first round is not the ideal time to play them and lean on the health card. Right,
especially after they got a week off.
Yeah.
They get a week off to get ready for you. Yeah, not ideal. Not ideal. Real quick, some of the other matchups here. I want to just get your thoughts. 1-8, we don't know yet, but I would think it's going to be Memphis, right? I just don't think one of those.
I don't know. I think Sacramento could beat them.
Really?
Yeah. In a one-game situation?
They haven't been playing very well lately. I don't know if you've noticed this about the
And
games.
Memphis really has. Just really.
Well, I'm just saying they've been limping around since the All-Star break, essentially.
It's a free pass series either way for OKC.
Yes, yeah.
Dallas and Sacramento, they probably will have played by the time a lot of people are listening to this, but they played tonight as we're recording. One of them will go to Memphis and play that game. Whoever wins will probably get swept, or maybe win one.
5-gamer sounds about right.
It's possible, but I would bet on a sweep over a 5-gamer, honestly. So that's a free pass for the Thunder. Ultimately, there are 5 really interesting first-round series, and I'm okay with that.
I'm about to go through them.
Yeah, no, I know. 3 duds, but 5 really good ones.
Your 2-7. This one is, as 2-7s go,
I think it's the most interesting series of the round.
One of the better 2-7s. You got Houston, who they're playing with house money. I don't care if they're the 2 seed. Nobody expects anything out of them, and they weren't even supposed to be here. And then the 7 seed, the Warriors, who, oh man, Sunday, that's a tough loss.
Oh, brutal.
That's a tough loss.
Mm-hmm. But, I've seen people make the argument, is it a better outcome for them in the end?
I don't think so.
Than to play the Lakers?
Well, I don't know.
If they win that game, they're playing the Lakers. Instead, Sure, they have to play on Tuesday, but they still get 4 days of rest before game 1. And the league very generously gave them 2 days off between games 1 and 2, and then another 2 days off between games 2 and 3.
Oh, are you trying to throw out a conspiracy theory here?
It's just a little fascinating, isn't it? Those old Golden State Warriors, Draymond's going a little gray. Steph's got an injured femur, I think.
And Jimmy Butler's Jimmy Butler.
Jimmy Butler, you never know what you're going to get. Those guys are, sort of the geriatric underdogs here of the West playoffs, so they could benefit from a little help early in the series, a little bit of a buffer, you might say, and then look, second round potentially, Warriors Lakers. The league surely wouldn't want that. They would never. They would never do anything to.
Wait, what are you suggesting that the NBA might be trying to rig things so that they can get Warriors Lakers in the second round?
It's interesting. Who do you think needs those 2 days of rest more? The spry, athletic, young Rockets, or the frail, hobbled Warriors who, as Steve Kerr said, desperately need this rest before game 1? So I don't know. It's going to be a great series. I think that's a long series too. Youth experience, Draymond and Dylan Brooks. I don't know what to expect there.
That's fun. Talk about nitroglycerin. That's
yeah, lots of texts incoming. Steph's the best player in the series. Who will the Rockets be able to close with? Can Amin Thompson kind of have a coming out moment and shut down Steph over the course of a series? A lot of fun stuff there.
Let's see here. The 3-6, also fun.
Yeah.
Lakers, Timberwolves. That doesn't seem like there's a big difference between those two. Like, you could tell me the Timberwolves would win in 6, and I'd be like, yeah, I could see that.
I'd be a little surprised. I do think it's a bad matchup for them, just because the Lakers are able to kind of play closer to 5 out a little bit more, like.
So Gobert isn't on the floor, is what you're saying at the end?
It's going to be a little tricky for him. Did you see what Luka Doncic said after his tribute video?
His favorite, the thing that made him cry was...
like, when I hit that step back over Gobert. Incredible quote. Yeah, NBA players don't really like Rudy Gobert.
No, they don't. No.
So I don't know. It's a little bit of a tough series for him, but like the Timberwolves just play so freaking hard when they want to get up for a series. And like, I'm not willing to discount Anthony Edwards in any matchup. No. I just refuse to. Like, I think he earns that respect.
Yeah. And they won a couple playoff series last year. Now, granted, that was with Cat, but still, this is a team that, this isn't new to them.
Yeah.
Even the guys that they added played in the playoffs.
Now, you want to talk about guys who historically don't have a great track record in the playoffs. Julius Randle probably belongs on that list.
It's not pretty. Although he was also on New York Knicks teams he was carrying. He was all of their offense. This was pre.
Right.
Some of it, I should say, was pre. God, why can't I think of his name? The guard from Villanova.
What are you talking? Are you talking about Brunson?
Yeah, Brunson. Some of it was pre-Brunson. Sorry, apologies.
Aaron can't believe it.
All right. So on the other side, is there anything you like over there?
Bucks Pacers is very interesting to me, and Knicks Pistons is interesting to me.
Doesn't seem like Lillard's coming back though for that series.
Yeah, but. It doesn't seem likely, I guess. But Giannis has been on a tear to end the season. The Bucks finished strong.
Pacers also finished strong.
It's a rematch of a series the Pacers won last year. I think the stakes feel a little bit higher in that series because the Cavs are this questionable 1 seed of can they prove it in the playoffs, and what if it does end up being Giannis against them in the second round and he's the best player in the series, and
maybe Lillard comes back.
And anything is possible at that point. So it feels like there's real stakes for a conference finals chance, at least for the winner of that. Whereas Knicks Pistons, I think, could be just a really fun series in a vacuum. and then the winner gets crushed by Boston.
Yeah, that's probably what happens.
So,
but I do think that is going to be a heck of a series.
yeah.
That'll be a lot of fun. How many fights?
Pistons want blood. They just are. They want to fight.
Under 1.5. Maybe not fights, but like chest bumping. I'm yelling. Hold me back. Like you think you're taking the over on 1.5?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
On like a kerfuffle.
Yeah.
It doesn't.
But more than just like
doesn't rise to the level of like the Minnesota Detroit one a couple weeks ago.
The officials have to get in, and maybe there's like a tech called.
Yeah, the over 1.5, and I think it'll go 6 games at least.
Yeah,
so
I think so too. Yeah. Although the Knicks, when they have all their guys, and I think it looks like they're going to have all their guys, they're better.
Yeah,
they're better than the Pistons.
I would no for sure. I will say that's the one where like I could see myself being disappointed a week from now, being like, oh man, it's 3-0 Knicks. That's kind of a bummer. I had high hopes for this. Like,
OG, I've seen a couple of things with him. He has been good. He's been really good.
Yeah, great finish to the season. Great two-way player.
Yeah. It's still
they've got a good team. They're just not a good matchup for the Celtics and not good enough to win the East.
Can you buy anybody other than the Celtics coming out of the East?
I think I can buy Cleveland, but I think Boston should be heavily favored in that series.
Agreed. It's hard for me to see them getting all the way to the finals. I don't know. I'm just a little skeptical. Whereas with the West, yes, OKC seems like the prohibitive favorite to get out of there, but like I could buy the Lakers.
Absolutely.
I could buy the Warriors.
Mm-hmm.
I could buy the Nuggets.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, really?
I think I'm in a spot with OKC where I might take the field over OKC to win the West, but I don't know that I feel that confident in any one team.
Right. I think, that's a good way to put it. I think that's fair. Yeah.
It's just like maybe they get worn down in a series and Chet gets hurt and then it works out for the Lakers.
Well,
or whatever,
and also the pressure.
Yeah.
I mean, they've played pressure free for essentially 6 months now. That stops now.
Exactly.
It's all pressure now from here on out. There's real expectations, and if they don't make the finals, I think it'll be labeled a disappointment. And they have not faced that before. This is the first time that reality has been in front of them. So I think that means something.
Real quick.
Yeah.
If the Clippers-Warriors game goes the other way in overtime on Sunday, it's Nuggets versus Timberwolves. Would you prefer that?
Yes.
You would prefer the Timberwolves in the end.
I would prefer the Timberwolves just from an entertainment standpoint. I just seeing those two play each other. If they could play each other in the playoffs every year, I'd sign me up. I enjoy those series.
I think a lot of Nuggets fans disagree.
Yeah, probably.
I think they want to rip their hair out watching that matchup.
They're just so fun. I mean, even the one when the Nuggets were the 1 seed and they won the series.
Yeah,
those were competitive
fun
and fun games.
Bruce Brown, I believe, later said,
"Yes,
the most difficult,
famously
opponent on the way to the title."
That was a troll job on the Suns, without a doubt. That was
maybe
almost assuredly a troll job. All right, last thing before we go, because Kawhi Leonard is involved in this playoff matchup, and he is so terrifying being on the other side. Wanted to put together a list of scariest players to go against in a playoff round. And it's just the ones that are playing in the playoffs now. Like these are the guys that legitimately scare you in the playoffs. I'm going to go first.
And this is in a vacuum. If they're healthy, and like you're just getting this player, and there's no way around it.
Correct.
Kawhi's like top 5 at least.
Let me go first.
Okay.
LeBron James. It's LeBron James.
Interesting.
Yes.
At number 1?
Yes.
At this point in his career still?
How many finals has that guy been to?
He's not the scariest player on his team.
It's LeBron James. Aaron,
I have tremendous respect for LeBron James.
Yeah.
I'm of the younger generation that grew up with him, so
sure.
I don't think he's the scariest in these playoffs to go against. I actually think that...
Go for it. Name your player.
I'm going to go with Steph. If we're going with the...
Steph?
The old grizzled veterans, like, yeah. Look, did you see like what Steph did in that game? He, the big shot that you kind of think he's going to make isn't going down a couple times. And you're like, oh man, is he a little injured right now? Does he look totally right? And then end of the game, it doesn't matter. All that off-ball movement that he does, everything that he does to get open, it gets to you. It does not matter. Like Scottie Pippen Jr., bravo. Commendable performance from a really young player chasing him around all game. And he like earned my respect for eternity last night. But it does not matter because Steph will get you in the end. And he hit 2 straight threes to go up 5 and up 6. And he ends up with like 35 points anyway.
Counterpoint. What is his record in the play-in game now? Is he 1-3? What 1-3 in play-in games?
Oh, look, I don't. So you kind of threw
Pretty
me.
sure it's 1-3.
Look, I'm going to say this. You threw a curveball at me with LeBron with the first one, and so I kind of was like, the first place my mind went was 2 guys. One of them was his teammate right now in LA, and the other was his longtime contemporary of his generation in Steph. And I actually would probably say like Luka or Jokic, maybe. I don't know.
It's got to be Luka then, right?
I mean, Jokic had a historic run to the title 2 years ago.
Aaron, you got the third pick. What do you got?
I'll just take Jokic.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's a good pick. I think it's a fair pick.
He's going to average like 37, 15, and 14 in this series.
Yeah.
I don't know if they win, but he puts up a huge stat line.
I don't know if he's going to have that many assists, but yes, he's going to have a fantastic stat line.
Do we want to snake this, or
yeah?
Do you want to just take another guy? You can take Luka.
I'll take Luka.
All right, that's a pretty amazing pick and roll duo right there.
Yep.
I'm gonna throw someone into a pick and roll duo with Steph and say Giannis. Then
I also wanted to note LeBron right off the top rope at age 40.
Yeah.
And you referenced how many championships he'd been to.
Yeah.
You had hair when he was in that run.
Correct.
Like, it's been 5 years.
Dude's a killer.
Denver's eliminated him 2 years in a row.
That's
how is Jokic not scarier than him?
That's true. I think maybe Jokic had a little bit better team around him. And also...
But Jokic led the playoffs in
and also,
rebounds, assists. He was incredible.
They were essentially 2 Jamal Murray last-second shots away from maybe stealing that series. I mean, that was a close series. They were in all of those games. But fair enough. All right, so who'd you pick?
I think I would take Giannis.
Giannis. Fair enough.
Had one of the all-time great playoff runs to lead his team to a championship. I still don't know that I've seen anything like that in my life. I guess like LeBron in 16 maybe, like stands up with the Giannis 21 run, but like I don't know, he's just one of the most unstoppable forces in the sport, and he's almost becoming underappreciated a tiny bit for it, I think.
I agree. Okay, next, that's me, right?
Mm-hmm. And he's also just like an extreme competitor and crazy, like, just all respect to Giannis. I love the guy.
Okay, I'm going SGA.
Yeah.
I think it goes without saying. He was really good in the Dallas series last year. He wasn't the reason.
He was really good.
He wasn't the reason that they got eliminated from that series. He's playing his best basketball. I think he's about to give us a really big run, potentially all the way to the finals. Who knows? We'll see. But if they don't make the finals, it's not going to be because of him. It's going to be because who's that number 2? Who's the other guy?
I agree.
That's doing it for them.
If any OKC fans listened to this podcast, they would not be happy at the likely MVP being picked 6th right here.
That's how.
Although I will say I'm kind of going off the dome here.
I'm going off the dome as well. Yeah. I'm totally going off the dome. Yeah. That's why I did LeBron first. All right. So
do you regret that pick?
Maybe a little bit.
Yeah. I regret Steph a tiny bit too, if I'm being honest.
Still working off some of that Kentucky trip. It wasn't helping you think.
Yeah, a little foggy still.
We're paying our respects to the elders, though.
Yeah. I mean, 10 finals. 10.
Yeah.
That's incredible. All right. So I'm next up because this is Snake.
There are a few directions you could go.
I think go Kawhi.
I think it's a fair pick. He's a 2 times finals MVP with 2 different teams.
Again, asterisk, if healthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would have taken him if you hadn't, probably.
You're up. I know who I'd pick.
This might be a little bit unwise just because there's some unproven stuff, but Ant is such a killer.
That's who I would have picked. That's exactly who I would have picked.
Ant is such a killer. Like, he is.
Yeah.
He is terrifying. Like,
Aaron, you got 2. We're just going to starting 5, by the way.
fair.
Yeah,
Are we building this out positionally? Because I have a 1, a 2, a 4, I guess now. You know? Okay.
I positionless basketball over here. I don't know about you.
All right.
I guess since he won the finals last year, but not the MVP, Jason Tatum.
Couldn't even get on the floor for Team USA.
Is he the scary? I think it's
No,
a fair pick.
I wanted Ant, but
Yeah.
No, but is he even the scariest guy on his team?
no, I was about to take Jaylen Brown, but
You're just going to go double Celtic?
You want to double Celtic it?
no, I want a little dog out there. I want playoff Jimmy.
Oh. I mean, that's fair.
Listeners, I'm a little stink face for me on that one.
I've got Luka, Jokic, Jason Tatum. I can have a little dog in there.
That's fair. That's
All
fair.
right.
You don't need Butler to do everything for you offensively.
Yeah, I just need the aura.
Okay, next up.
So if we're truly playing positionless right here, I'm going to go with a guy who has great playoff stats over his career, has had some amazing performances, and also is maybe a little underappreciated. Like Jaylen Brown probably should be the pick, but I think Donovan Mitchell deserves some respect. I would take him with this one.
I was going to pick him next.
Yeah.
He's
a dog.
I saw him go for 50 against the Nuggets in the bubble. He's a killer.
You were there? What?
No.
Oh.
My life. No, I wasn't
You
there.
said you saw.
I
Everyone
believe
saw it.
Was Aaron? Aaron, you were there, right?
No, I was still in like some sort of quarantine, so I didn't make it in until the Lakers round, actually.
Okay. Which was a heck of a round.
Yeah, it was really a fun round, but I would have liked to have been there for those other 2 series, all timers.
Okay.
Yeah.
That you really threw me off with the Mitchell thing.
Yeah. He's a great player and a great playoff player.
I was really leaning that direction. I'll go Jaylen Brown for one of them.
Yeah.
Let's see. Now I got to think about this.
Yeah, this is the fun last round here.
Nobody from Houston. I'm sorry. I got to see it first.
Yeah. I'm trying to think.
Jamal Murray.
I think that's a fair take, honestly. Like,
He's a playoff guy.
yeah.
He gets it done in the playoffs.
Like, if you're just looking at the teams in the field right now, scariest guys left.
He's got to be in there. He's got to be. He had 2 game winners last year, and it was considered a bad playoff run.
It's a good point. I don't know who. I think I would have taken him.
There was only one
If
other
we're,
guy.
if we're playing positionless, then I would have had a 4-guard lineup with Giannis there. But
there was one other guy in the back of my mind. I'll be interested to see if he ends up getting picked by one of you.
in the back of your mind, interesting. Yep. Because they're like the best players in this postseason, or the best ways to fill out this lineup theoretically. Like, I could take Chet Holmgren right now and have a pretty sick lineup.
Sure.
But like, he's never like
I can't think of a single playoff moment from him.
So I don't think it wouldn't be in good faith to take a guy like him. I mean, I don't know. I think the natural pick for the last guy here, and I end up with 4 lead guards, would be Jalen Brunson.
That was the guy in the back of my mind.
Yeah, like I think he's the one that makes the most sense, as he seems likely to win Clutch Player of the Year, an award that means nothing.
That shouldn't even exist, probably.
But is a testament to his clutch ability, I guess.
All right, we got to go quick here. So, Aaron, who's your last pick?
Give me Austin Reeves.
Okay, that's a dumb pick. You haven't seen him do anything in the playoffs.
My team is stacked, and the guy's a dog. He's
take Cat based on what you saw him do against Jokic last year.
Never heard of him.
Austin Reeves.
Take Fred Van Vliet.
He has championship DNA. If you've ever seen my Twitter feed.
Okay, all right. So just real quickly.
And also, Matt took a 40-year-old in the first round, so I wanted to give him
10 NBA Finals. All right, my team: LeBron, SGA, Kawhi, Jaylen Brown, Jamal Murray. I don't really have a center there. I guess LeBron's playing 5 in that lineup, and I'm okay with that. Bennett, Steph, Giannis, Ant, Mitchell, Brunson. That's a 4 out, 1 in with Giannis.
Pretty much.
Aaron, Nikola, Luka, Tatum, Butler, Reeves. Maybe the most well-rounded team in terms of position.
Jokic, Luka, and Giannis probably should have been the first 3 guys.
Yeah, probably.
In whatever order.
Possibly the whitest team also. Possibly.
Yeah, definitely. No doubt. No white guys on my team.
Shall I run through some award stuff?
Yeah, we got to do it quick, though. So I'm going to rapid fire them at you. You give me what you got.
Okay.
MVP. We'll go with the big one right off the bat.
Nikola Jokic.
Of course it's Nikola Jokic. Yeah. Are you kidding me? I can't believe that this is a runaway victory for SGA.
Yeah, at the very least, I think that the voting needs to come out closer than it's going to.
Yeah.
And so that's why I kind of feel comfortable with the Jokic vote, having watched him all year. I do think Shea is a perfectly deserving winner, but gosh, it should be 55-45, 60-40.
Right.
Not it seems like it's been trending toward 80-20 or something like that.
Yeah,
so
I would think
just don't know.
the guy averaged a triple-double and shot 57% from the field.
Yeah.
And if you believe ESPN, underrated defensively.
Yeah. Everyone has their opinions on that. That's a topic for another time. So I went Jokic, Shea, Giannis 3rd, Tatum 4th, and I went with Mitchell 5th.
Tatum 4th.
Yeah, that was pretty easy for me. He was incredible this year. Went with Mitchell 5th. Really good year. I also gave him the 5th spot on my first team for All NBA.
Let's go through All NBA. What are your teams?
So I just named the first team.
Yep.
My second team, Anthony Edwards was the first guy there. He was the closest to making my first team.
First man out. Yep.
LeBron James, Steph Curry, Tyrese Halliburton, and Karl Anthony Towns.
Halliburton made it all the way up to the second team.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. He
was on a tear in the last half of the season. The first half wasn't as great.
I think it got overstated. I think he had like 4 bad weeks to start the year.
Yeah.
And then was really good the rest of the way. To put it in perspective, he touches the ball the second most of any player in the league behind Jokic. And he had a 5.6 assist to turnover ratio.
Pretty good.
That is outrageous. I was looking at the last 3 or 4 years at guys who have averaged 70 touches a game and a 4 assist to turnover ratio. And Van Vliet had one, Mike Conley had one, and Halliburton does every year. He's at over 90 touches and 5.6. It's incredible how efficient he is.
Third team,
Cade Cunningham, Jalen Brunson, Evan Mobley was actually the closest to making my second team.
Brunson just got in on the games requirement.
Yes, yeah, he narrowly made it at the last minute. Evan Mobley was almost on my second team, but I went with him third team. Jalen Williams of OKC and Alperen Şengün for Houston.
So Zubac doesn't get in.
He was close, and I'm giving him his love and a couple other awards. So
Okay. All right. All defense.
All defense, I have. Let me make sure I've got this pulled up here correctly. First team, and I'll do my top three, my ballot for Defensive Player of the Year. I went with Lou Dort first.
Mm-hmm. Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah.
ASU.
I think when we look back at this year, we
Sun
will.
Devil.
Yeah, there you go. I think we will remember this historically good OKC Thunder team, and Lou Dort had the toughest matchup every night. The eye test just showed how exhausted star players got with him guarding them, and the unwillingness to kind of take the shot diet that they would usually take. They shot well below expected percentage-wise when they did shoot it. He is an incredible defender on one of the best defenses we've ever seen. So I went with him. First place, Evan Mobley, second place. Incredible year for the Cavs. And then I went with the Great Barrier Thief, Dyson Daniels, in third place. So that ends my DPOY ballot. The other guys on my first team were Jaren Jackson Jr. and Draymond Green. Draymond Green, great media campaign to try and win Defensive Player of the Year.
Hat tip.
Late in the season.
Way to go.
I couldn't put him on my ballot. When I watched, he was pretty inconsistent at times, and I just, there are some numbers, in isolation that are really good. He's this prototypical great defensive big who can switch and do all this stuff on the perimeter too, and, I think first team all defense is reflective of that, but he was not on my DPOY ballot.
Is there a chance the Lou Dort thing looks kind of like the Marcus Smart thing a few years ago?
I don't know. I think Dort's incredible, and
so was Marcus Smart.
I tried to talk to a few people and see what they thought, and there's a ton of respect for Dort around the league, I think, and I just I can look at the numbers, and there are numbers that support different guys and all this stuff. The eye test really supports Lou Dort when you watch OKC play, I think. It was a really tough choice, and as soon as Wembanyama was out of the running, it was this is kind of a crapshoot. So,
no doubt Wembanyama will win this 8 times.
Yes. So the second team I have Zubats, Gobert, Amen Thompson, Jalen Williams, J-Dub for OKC, and Tumani Kamara for Portland.
Okay. Wow. Portland getting some love.
Yeah. Really good defensively second half of the season.
Sixth man of the year.
I went with former Nugget, Malik Beasley.
A post Malone All-Star, if there ever one was.
Most definitely. Big part of Detroit's, resurgence. Went with Ty Jerome second, Peyton Pritchard third.
Peyton Pritchard probably wins that, by the way, right? That seems like that's...
He'll probably win, yeah. I think all three of those guys were pretty deserving.
Yeah.
You could make a case for Naz Reid to be in there. I forget who else I looked at, but there were a few guys, good candidates this year.
Malik Beasley, what a run for him.
Yeah, incredible three-point shooting year. High volume.
Coach of the year.
Kenny Atkinson, easy choice for me.
Yeah, I mean, oddly enough, you could make a case for the guy that he replaced.
He was my second pick. Bickerstaff second, Ty Lue third. Ime Udoka is going to get a ton of votes too, and he'll deserve to be on ballots. Dagnall might appear on some ballots, obviously, just because of how impressive OKC's season was.
I feel like the GM probably deserves the love for that one. Not that Dagnall is a bad coach, but they just have so much more talent.
Yeah. Although, only undefeated coach in the league right now is David Adelman.
That's a good point.
Worth noting. So I might have snubbed him.
Okay. It's an award that exists, so we'll talk about it. Clutch Player of the Year.
Clutch Player of the Year, I went Brunson first, Jokic second, and Darius Garland third. The numbers were very good for Garland in the clutch. So,
what a dumb award.
Very dumb award. I gave it the least amount of thought. I try to take this stuff really seriously and put a lot of thought and research into it, and then Clutch Player, I spent about 15 minutes looking at guys' clutch stats, basically. So,
yeah. Okay. Am I forgetting any?
I mean, that's the main stuff. Oh, most improved.
Most improved, yeah.
I went with Zubats here.
Okay. Makes sense.
And Christian Braun was a close second for me, and I went with Dyson Daniels third.
So Cade doesn't get in there.
I couldn't bring myself to put him on the ballot.
Number one overall pick.
To me, it's just against the spirit of the award.
Yeah.
If he wins, congratulations, good for him. He had a really good year, but it's not for him. It's not Mobley's a number 2 pick.
Right.
I couldn't put him on there either.
Right.
Like Zubats is like a developmental project who has had this incredible payoff this year where they didn't post up that many times with him last year, and he had the second most post ups in the league behind Jokic this year. Like they could run their offense through him. Their numbers, like impact wise, were really good when he was on the floor, even when Harden and Kawhi were off the floor, which like speaks to how important he became within the Clippers offense, within their defense, everything. Like I think he makes sense as like this jump in role at a certain point in his career that just jumps off the page. And then Christian Braun, like right up there. I think he was finished like 5th in the league in true shooting as a guard, which is incredible.
He and Jokic, I think, were right next to each other in true shooting, actually.
They were both
incredible.
right there near the top. So Christian Braun, incredible. It seems like he's going to be like third or left off some ballots. I think he needed to be top 2. And then Dyson Daniels, incredible offensive leap. Obviously a historic year in terms of the steals and deflections too. I just think all three of them had a more like earnest case than your number 1 pick, sort of typical development.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that does it for us. We don't really have time to get through emails and or iTunes reviews. I have to get going. I have a place to be. Bennett, always a pleasure. Playoffs are upon us. What a time.
Can't wait. Should be fun. Could be a week. Could be
there's so
2
many
months,
different outcomes.
technically, I guess.
It feels like there's a lot of different outcomes coming for the Nuggets, so we'll see what happens.
I guess we'll see what happens playoffs. Let the games begin.
All right. Take care, buddy.
Looks like we have another dragon, Master Ace, spitting the burning passion. It's about to be a catastrophe. Thought I was the only survivor, but at last we meet. Like the food vegans don't eat. I know you can see the infernal blaze. We would probably burn the stage and leave it with 3rd degrees. And inside of us is an eternal blaze, blazing eternally like a furnace. But it's so hot it's burning the furnace's frame. Your family and furniture isn't safe. Better evacuate, cause the skill we can calibrate reduces the chances of your survival if you ever try to retaliate. So dance to this recital so you can slowly gravitate towards us. Who needs a chorus when you're hotter than Earth's core is? No strings attached with no puppets, yo, we're cordless. I fly even when I'm hurt, yo, that's soaring. Your skill isn't apparent, it's an orphan. We proceed to spit the verse that takes your spirit and lifts it high into the earth's atmospheres. Don't come at my sphere of influence, you squares. I take a spear and put it through you, I raise the stakes. Medium rare, you're the least of the media's fears. Why he's the reason the media's scared. Please be prepared to be impaired. Go see repairs, defeating people in pairs. Jordans, I thought I needed pairs to be compared to the people in pairs.
This is a journey into sound. A journey which along the way will bring to you new color, new dimension, new values, and a new experience.
Gather round hip-hoppers as if you're still living. Still got love for the game, I'm still giving and still driven. Like Diddy in the Maybach. I've been repping for the city since way back. All y'all rappers better stay back, cause you still can't find me. I'm a needle in a haystack, a rare breed sitting high up in the chariot. While y'all dudes getting high up in the Marriott. Well, consider this your wake-up call. If you're married to the game, this the breakup call. And you ain't wearing a crown if you're not tearing it down. You clowns get found right there in the ground, 6 feet, dirt nap, that's because your shit's weak. I'm a giant, you a pipsqueak. Welcome to my kingdom, yup, the throne has an occupant. Read my name at the bottom of the document. Check the scroll, giving good times like Esther Roll. Peace to Keithy E, God bless the soul. Trying to get more checks to hold. On some slick Rick, Mr. T shit, big chest of gold. And the flow still extra cold, like the North Pole, cocaine snow, another lost soul. bow down, it's the Grand Royal. Yup, 20 plus years in the game, and still the fans loyal.